Hello. Thanks for returning and joining me as I read through Elie Wiesel's The Gates of the Forest. I decided to do this for a few reasons. First, it was an influential book for me in terms of how I think about God tries to break in or feels absent during times of stress and uncertainty and times of war and struggle. And the Jewish people went through a horrible experience in the Holocaust and under fascism and Nazis, white supremacy theory, even though I think Adolf Hitler himself was Jewish. And of course, Jesus was a Jew. And a lot of Christians are getting amped up with the same kinds of propaganda that happened before the Jewish people were so demeaned in a Christian nationalism mindset that it made sense to treat them like less than human and round them up and incinerate them. So this is a true story, but reads like fiction. It's very symbolic in a lot of ways of some of the precursors to what we're now experiencing today. I saw a lot of disturbing kinds of imagery in that. I think that the Department of War, not Defense, posted some ridiculous video about the Lord's Prayer being recited while military is amped up to, invade cities and capture even children and hand tie them in the middle of the night, treat them like they're less than human. That's happening in Chicago. And so it's time for us to get realistic about what we're experiencing because this is not normal. It's happened before, but it happened in Germany and across the European reaches and towards the people. Of course, we've got a lot of people that are suffering now, immigrants, people in Gaza, and a lot of Jewish people I know especially do not want to see what's happening to Palestinians be happening, and they're actively leading the way in advocacy. So the common citizen has a voice. You probably wouldn't go out and buy this and read it yourself, so I want you to try to follow along with me. This is a long chapter, so I'll probably split it up. It's hard to read sometimes. When the police dogs and their masters had left the mountain, rejoicing in their victory, the calm which followed was so sudden and severe that Gregor could endure it only by falling humbly to his knees. Intermission was over. The play began again. The actors were back on the stage, and officers in dazzling uniforms stood in front of the firing squads, raising their arms and calling out, "Fire, fire, fire!" And soldiers, bored, fired their machine guns, indifferent, thinking of nothing, not even of death. And hundreds of hearts ceased beating, ceased advancing toward a future at the end of which a Messiah, it didn't matter who, was supposed to receive them. "Fire!" called out the officers, and the Messiah himself, 1,000 times, 1,000 times multiplied, fell into the ditch. Spring continued. The war, too. They complemented each other perfectly, the one accentuating the other, each prolonging the other's life. Cold weather isn't suitable to murder, it slows it down. As a conscientious artisan, the killer prefers to work in the sun, brave and free, knowing no fear, loving hard work and good health, relaxed in his movements, and guiltless in the eyes of his fellow men. The killer knows that he is following the right way. "We're doing it for the good of mankind," said the philosophers of murder, waiting for the rest of the world to congratulate them. The earth was red, its only becoming color. The streams were red, and the fields and the wheat, the poplars and the apple trees, the days and the nights. It was shining and splendid, the earth of Galatia and the Ukraine under the red sun of the late spring. For an immeasurable moment, his eye fixed upon the crack in the cave. Gregor felt a strange quiet within him. His sufferings were over. His friend had gone, but the painful laceration he had awaited did not occur. Without knowing how or why, he felt in harmony with the visible and invisible forces of nature which run through every inch of the human body. He heard the twitter of birds, of whose presence he had not previously been aware, and it seemed to him quite natural that the same segment of eternity should contain the outcry of the tortured prisoner and the song of the forest. Both belonged to the same ancient and secret design, and bore witness either for, either against, but their testimony was clear. Perfect harmony between me and this design, between me and this witness. The events of the last days, from the arrival of Gabriel to his departure, had obeyed a logic whose exact thread escaped him, but he found it normal that Gabriel should be in prison or already dead, and that he should be alive and free. What Gabriel had left to him was beyond sorrow, beyond justice. At twilight, an infinitely delicate gray light detached itself from the sky. Mildness and peace. A cool breeze blew, farmers came in from the fields, offices emptied, people went home to love, to hate. Men teased their wives, but their laughter was hollow. Pious souls thanked heaven for the passage of another day of war, but their prayer was empty. The city fought its last fight against the encroaching shadows. Having decided to leave the cave, Gregor had a choice, either to go back to the city in the hope of being arrested and surprising Gabriel, or to make for the Romanian border, where safety awaited him. At the very last minute, when he was slipping from one tree to another, he thrust aside both solutions, judging them to be foolish, and took the road to the obscure village which was the home of the old servant Maria. "Promise to obey me," she said to him. "I promise. If you want to live, and I want you to live, I can tell you, you must do what I ask." There was a pale smile on her lips. "How can I disobey you, Maria? At home you always gave me orders." "Don't speak of the past, not today. Here's what I've decided to do with you. Listen." "I'm listening, Maria." "First, you are to stay here until the end of the war. Understood?" "And when will there be an end to the war?" "That's not your concern. It's up to the soldiers. Your concern is to stay alive. Is that clear?" "At your service, Maria." Unaffected by the irony in his voice, Maria went on. "Good. That's settled. Let's go on to the next problem. How are we to keep the village from finding out you are here?" "How indeed?" "To hole up in a hiding place is out of the question. The town's too small. Everyone knows everything here. And so? And so we must think of something else." "What, for instance?" "You must show yourself." "In public?" "In public, yes. On the street, at church, everywhere. People hereabouts are as hospitable as any others. They'll come up to shake hands with you and talk, just as they would anywhere else. That's only natural. They're interested in strangers." "Yes, I'm listening." "Here's where the problem becomes complicated. People speak only Romanian in the village. They haven't accepted the politicians' decisions to hand over our spot of ground to the damned Hungarians. And your Romanian accent, not to mention what you might say, isn't very convincing. The minute you open your mouth, they'll know, if not who you are, at least who you're not. And so? And so you mustn't talk, that's all." Nonplussed, more than amused, Gregor looked at her uncomprehendingly. With pinched lips, Maria spoke the final, inescapable solution. "It's quite simple. From now on, and until the end of the war, you must be dumb. With yourself, with me, with everybody. You must forget that you ever knew how to talk. Is that clear?" In her eyes a firmness, a determination which could not be deflected. The old servant had decided all alone to struggle, all alone, against the monstrous machine of war. "You understand, don't you? Yes or no? There's no other way." Gregor didn't know what to admire most, her courage, her ingenuity, or her goodness. He smiled. "Yes, I understand, Maria. It's the only way I know. You're right. You were always right." She made a movement as if to draw him to her and hug him, and then composed herself. Tears welled in her eyes. She sniffled and wiped her nose with her skirt. "Good. Everything will be all right. I'm proud of you." And so, by the grace and will of Maria, Gregor gave up speech. This was no sacrifice at all. Already in the cave, he had become used to silence and loved it. Gabriel had told him, "Men talk because they're afraid. They're trying to convince themselves that they're still alive. It's the silence after the storm that God reveals himself to man." God is silence. Even today, Gregor thinks nostalgically to the peaceful, dreamlike weeks under Maria's protection, when liberty was not law but the absence of law. They allowed him to glimpse a universe which had nothing in common with the words. He has kept scraps of this universe, and ever since he lost it, he has lived for the purpose of putting it together again. Sometimes he fancies he is succeeding, and then the sounds of the faraway night become voices, and he shuts his eyes in order to hear them. You must listen without answering, and if possible, without understanding, Maria continued. All will be well, you'll see. Her plans went even further. Gregory must have an identity, a home, a past, a story. She decided to pass him off as her deaf and dumb nephew, slow-witted, harmless, a little odd. Thus, from the very beginning, there would be no grounds for suspicion. Remember this, she said, from now on and until the end of the war, you are the son of my sister Elena, of my miserable sister whose sins drew the fire of heaven down upon herself and her children. Clear? Not at all, said Gregor. I didn't know you had a sister. You're too young to know everything. She made a gesture of irritation, stared vacantly, and hesitated a moment before going on. Alina left the village 20 years or more ago, in any event, a year before me, and she's never been heard of since. She's a whore somewhere, in a port or a palace, who knows, married to a shopkeeper or a cabinet minister. It doesn't matter. Perhaps she's not even alive, in which case God have pity on her soul. There's nothing about your mother to boast of. A slut, a real slut, a servant of the devil. Morning, noon, and night, especially night, she ran after the men. She turned their heads, and they fell for her. Father used to beat her, and she laughed at him, as if to show that he, too, desired her. It may have even been true. She was beautiful. She had the devil in her blood. The slut. Men lost their heads just by looking at her, and she knew it. She flaunted herself in front of them. Maria struggled to contain her anger or her suffering. How do you know she has a son, and one that looks like me? I don't know. I hope she doesn't. A woman like her has no right to be a mother. Shame is carried like disease, you know. She shook herself, and her voice became normal again. But none of that matters. In the eyes of people, here you'll be her son, legitimate or not. I don't care, and neither do they. That's it. The rest is nobody's business. If anybody's too nosy, he'll have to reckon with me. A mischievous twinkle lit up her wrinkled face. She liked her scheme. 4 years I belonged to your family. Now you belong to mine. I hope you like the idea. Of course, I'm flattered. The exchange is all to my advantage. And because she didn't seem to understand, he explained, It's to my advantage to save my life, isn't it? Even if he was deaf and dumb and dull-witted, he had to learn the fundamentals of Christianity, to make the sign of the cross, to behave correctly in church, to kneel while kissing the holy images. For there was no necessity to memorize the catechism by rote or go to confession. Being a deaf-mute had some advantages. Maria left nothing to chance. For one thing, she found her nephew's suit too well cut. Why not? Asked Gregor, to whom it was a link, indeed the only link with the past. Your sister is well off, and it's natural that her son should go to the best tailor. Elena may be rich, but her money stinks. I'll have none of it. She took some wool cloth and made him the clothes of a Transylvanian peasant, with a long collarless shirt, shapeless trousers, and no socks or shoes. A genuine peasant finds shoes useless. He likes to feel the ground under his feet, especially in the spring, when the earth is renewed into life. The only person she took into the secret was Jonel, a grim, ill-tempered fellow with a sullen glint in his eyes. Gregor could not make out whether he was Maria's husband or a former lover. She spoke of him with a hate that was close to love. He's a woman-chaser, a gambler, a grumbler, an idler, and a liar, she said. The devil can take him for all I care, but even the devil doesn't want him nearby. You loved him, admit it, said Gregor. You still love him. Maria became violent and raised her fist as if she were about to strike him. Love? Love? You young people can't talk or think about anything else. You're crazy, I tell you, as if love were the most important thing in life. Well, what is more important, Maria? How should I know? How should I know? I'm no longer what you'd call young. And then you're the one who ought to know. You're the one who goes to school, and it's your nose, not mine, that was always in books. Where there are only words and lies. What have your books taught you? Tell me that. Yono had built his yellow cabin with a cornstalk roof in an isolated place at the far end of the village, but at night he was rarely home. Sometimes he appeared at Maria's, dead drunk and barely able to keep his balance, and she took care of him as if he were a child, tenderly, but cursing him the whole time. You'd have better died in your mother's womb, she told him. Gregor made Yono's acquaintance the first morning after his arrival. Loud voices had awakened him. Maria was arguing with someone who was threatening and insulting her. Gregor listened. He must go away. He'll be too much trouble. No, Yono, he's going to stay, and he won't be any trouble at all. The amount of time that you're here. If you keep him, I won't ever come back. I'm keeping him. Gregor held his tongue. The sun must have risen. The light was burning his eyelids. The war must last 20 years. Are you going to keep him that long? 50 if necessary. And if I say no, too bad, that's all. You've never spoken to me that way. That's too bad. I should have. And if I throw him out, I wouldn't advise it. What if I were to report him to the police? What would happen then? Can you tell me? I'd get a reward and they'd arrest him. Good riddance, I'd call it. When Maria said nothing, he cleared his throat and went on. I don't like the Jews, and I don't understand how you can deal with them. They don't know how to think or curse. They're not real men. If you love them the way you do, it means there's something wrong with you, something rotten inside, a screw loose. Ask the priest and he'll tell you. It's a sin to be a Jew lover. It's not normal. But I'm normal, and the police, they're normal too. I really think I ought to report him. What do you say? A long silence followed. Gregor felt it echo through his body. He wanted to raise his head and look at the two adversaries, especially Maria, to see if she was capable of violence, whether she would turn white with rage or cry, whether she would fight or give in. But all he could do was to bite his lips, clench his fists, and wait. Finally Maria came out with an answer, and her voice was as cold and cutting as a knife. If you do that, Yona, I'll kill you, she said, emphasizing every word. And I mean it. I'm warning you. If anything happens to this boy, I'll take the axe there in the corner near the stove and kill you. You know I don't waste words. I'll do just what I say I'll do. I'll wait for a night when you've had too much to drink, when you're in a drunken sleep. Even if I have to wait for years, I'll do it. I'll have no pity. There was another but shorter silence. You're crazy, he said with a nervous laughter. Do you really think so? Yes, that's crazy talk. You sound like the widow of Mihai, the one who wanted to dig her dead husband out of the grave and murder him a second time. If I didn't know you, I'd say you were crazy. What does this boy matter to you, a little beggar Jew with the police after him? Are you going to take in the whole lot of them? Have you decided to open an orphan asylum? Maria whistled between her teeth, and Gregor was sorry that he couldn't see her face. You're a bastard, that's what you are, Yodel. The biggest bastard in the world, and the world's dirty for your being in it. You're worse than a snake. From your head to your feet, you're all poison. Now just listen to me. Gregor's not a little beggar Jew, as you call him. He's my nephew. And if you touch a hair of his head, you'll regret it. The winter nights are long. You'll never close your eyes. You'll die 1,000 deaths before I kill you. Yonel grunted unintelligibly, spat on the floor, and went away, slamming the door behind him. Maria stood motionless. Gregor waited a few minutes before opening his eyes. Then he raised himself into his elbows and yawned as if he were waking up. Did you have a good sleep? Maria asked him weakly. Even better than at home. He went out in the courtyard to wash up. When he came back, he found hot coffee and 2 slices of bread and butter on the table. He ate with appetite. The coffee made him feel good. Sitting across the table, Maria set forth her plan. I've spoken to Yonel, she said, her upper lip quivering. You'll be seeing him often around the house, perhaps too often. Don't be frightened of him. He isn't as bad as he looks. Anyhow, he approves of my idea. Everything's going to be all right. He has promised to protect you. Gregor wished at that moment he could have thrown his arms around her. He who would He who had never told a lie suddenly saw that a lie can reveal a human being's true nature. Maria's eyes opened wide, and for no apparent reason tears streamed down her hollow cheeks. Gregor had never seen her cry. "You mustn't," he said gently, and without getting up he held out his hand and touched her arm, which was resting on the table. "No, Maria, you really mustn't." "It's idiotic of me to cry," she said, wiping her face with the hem of her skirt. "You're too young to understand, but women are like that. All they can do is cry. When I'm unhappy, I cry. When I'm happy, I cry too. If a woman doesn't cry, she must be dead. My sister Arlena didn't cry, but she was different." Noisily, she blew her nose. "Don't stare at me. I'm not sick and I'm not dead. If I cry, it's just that I'm ashamed to have you stay in such a barn." "I won't complain," said Gregor, smiling. "At least not before the end of the war. Remember, I'll be a deaf mute." 2 days later, she took him around the village. There were no more, and probably less, than 300 people living there, most of them very young or very old, the others having been taken into the army. She pointed out the church, the school, to which children from the next village went as well, the grocery, the notary's house, the police station. The village people, already aware of his presence, stared at him and nodded their heads with a mixture of curiosity and pity. Alina had enjoyed a certain notoriety, and the presence of her son brought all sorts of old gossip to the surface. "It's him, all right. He looks just like his mother. That he does. May she be cursed. Poor fellow, his mother sinned, and he's the one God punished. It's unfair, of course, but what can you do? The ways of heaven are inscrutable. Women at their windows, old men standing in the doorways, and the customers at the grocery all followed him with their eyes as if he were a famous visitor, a prince. Maria introduced him to the notables. "This is my nephew, Gregor. That's it. Gregor, make a bow there. You see, he can't talk, poor fellow. He can't even say hello, and he doesn't hear either. Or if he does hear, he doesn't understand. There had to be a punishment, even if it was late in coming." Gregor bowed and moved his lips in a grimace, while the onlookers put on the expression of compassion. "The poor boy, he seems so gentle. How did his mother happen to send him to you? She lives in a large city. She's afraid of air raids. What about herself? She isn't afraid of anything. Do you think he looks like Alina? Those eyes? Not the least bit. Look at him. He's a quiet sort, and she, ugh, do you remember? The slut? She had a devil in her." "That's right. He seems so good-natured. He looks as if he wouldn't hurt a fly. While she... I can't understand. How could that slut of an Alina have such a nice boy, I ask you? Who's the father?" Maria shrugged her shoulders. "How should I know? I doubt if she knows herself." And she spat with disgust. After they had made the rounds of the village, Maria went home, leaving Gregor to stroll farther. Passers-by greeted him in a friendly fashion, and he nodded back. Spring filled the air with fragrance and promise, and the people went about their work with slow deliberateness, but not lazily. Far away, the war raged on, but they were oblivious to it. To them, war meant a son at the front, a husband reported missing, a big brother in uniform. They said, "My son's in the war," just as they would have said, "My son's getting married." During the following days, Gregor came to know the village characters better. The priest, with his self-satisfied air of a false martyr, holding his hairy hands over his big stomach as if to protect it. Constantine, Stefan, the schoolteacher, a puny man quite unnoticeable, except when he opened his mouth to give out excitedly some pompous opinions. He talked a great deal and was incessantly in motion. Mihai, the carpenter, nicknamed the penitent, who sat on the ground in front of his hut, built of blackened wood, looking nervously first in one direction and then the other, as if he were waiting for the arrival of God knows whom from God knows where. Stan, the blind man, near the entrance to the church. When he sang, it seemed as if his voice served him as eyes. Gregor spent much time with them, listening to their joys and sorrows, the forbidden dreams that lay hidden under 7 layers of silence among their memories. A deaf mute was not dangerous, and they opened themselves up to him quite freely, laughing and crying, revealing secrets which their closest neighbors, above all their closest neighbors, did not know. They talked to him also about his mother, how in times gone by she had turned the heads of all men of the village, even the old ones. Ah, well, fortunately she's gone away. Ah, well, too bad she's gone away. The village bordered on a green and yellow valley where shepherds lying on the grass watched over their sheep and played sad tunes on their long flutes. From far away they signaled to Gregor, and he went to lie down beside them. With their eyes fixed on a point in the motionless sky, they played heartbreaking airs, which he knew that at bottom they were happy, that they were in harmony with their lot and the lot of others. At sunset they gathered their flocks together by the call of a flute, without a single cry, and the air was filled with the chiming of bells and with nostalgia. Farewell to the sun which leaves in peace, which never fails to return. The only person whom Gregor never saw until the last day at school was the mayor of the village, Petrushkanu. The peasants spoke of him fearfully, with lowered voices, as if he were in league with some celestial or diabolical power. He lived in the villa beside the lake, and he was said to be so fabulously wealthy that only a man on horseback could cover the whole of his estate. In his luxurious manor, where the curtains were always drawn, he lived the life of a recluse, with an old nurse for a housekeeper. Every morning she went to purchase supplies at the grocery and to stop in at the post office for the newspaper. Everyone hated her without knowing exactly why, perhaps because she seemed to exude an odor of death. Swathed in a black scarf and shivering even in midsummer, she looked as if she were dying. Whenever she met one of the villagers on the street and spat contemptuously, not even bothering to see who it was. As for Petrushkanu, I guess that's how you say it, Petrushkanu, he practically never showed himself, even at church. Every Sunday the priest went to the villa and said mass in the private chapel which Petrushkanu's father had built as a memorial to Countess Marcella, his young and beautiful wife, who had died a year after their marriage. Petrushkanu, his son, remained a bachelor. The priest had tried many times to give him advice, or at least to talk to him, but Petrushkanu had no desire for conversation. As soon as the mass was over, he had the housekeeper escort him to the door. If Gregor could have spoken, he would have spent his time asking the villagers about their lives and that of his mother, who still seemed to obsess those who had known her. From the scraps of information he was able to put together, he gathered that she had possessed so strong a will and had such boundless vitality that she had triumphed over every obstacle in her way. She was never content, however, with her victories, but turned them to derision, as if to further humble those whom she had already defeated. Actually, she fought not to win, but to lose. The only trouble was that she kept on winning. After the war, I'll find her, Gregor promised himself. Yes, after the war, everything will be possible. But he could not speak, and this was fundamentally to his advantage, because his curiosity was wordless, never rising to the surface. Men and women spoke to him without inhibition, revealing their deepest and darkest anxieties, their guiltiest joys. He became not their mirror, but their receptacle. Hardly a week had gone by before he was the best informed person in the community. He knew how to listen. He knew nothing else. My poor Gregor, you don't know how lucky you are. You're free. You've no family, no wife and children, above all, no daughter. Have you seen my daughter? The little bitch. She came home last week with a belly as big as a barrel. I beat her up, tore out her hair, and knocked her against the wall. Who's the father? I asked her. Who's the bastard that dishonored you? I'll bash his face in. But she wouldn't say his name. She spat blood, but not a word came out of her mouth. So I'll be grandfather to a little bastard, that bitch. What will people say? I'll be the laughingstock of the whole village. What can I do, Gregor? Tell me, what can I do? And another, come here, Gregor, and let's talk. Have you never wanted to get rid of all the words dancing in your head, to get them out of your system somehow? No, I don't suppose you have, obviously. You're not like me. You're lucky. Well, do you know Marutza? Don't look at me idiotically like that. You must know her. Everybody does. There's only one Maruska in the village, the daughter of the woodcutter, who lives like a savage. You must have seen Marutza coming back from the fields in the evening, with her hips swaying. She doesn't swing them anymore. She's wearing a wide skirt now, trying to hide something that can't be hidden for long. She's expecting a child. Marutza is. My child, and my wife doesn't know anything about it. If she finds out, she'll kill me. Yes, she's capable of that. I know her. She's just waiting for a chance to do me in. She terrifies me. That's why I married her. She knows it, and that's why she hates me. What am I to do? You know nothing. You are innocent of sin. Give me advice. And a third, do you see those people in church and in the fields? All they care about is their own pleasure. And you think they're happy, don't you? You think they're good Christians. Well, they're liars, every last one of them. How do I know? Because I'm a liar myself. My whole life is a lie. I lied to the priest, to my wife, to my friends. You're the only one to whom I don't lie. To the others I lie continuously. To everyone. I don't tell them that my life disgusts me, that my wife disgusts me even more. What's there to do, Gregor? How can I live without lying? Impassive, Gregor listened and smiled inwardly. His mask protected him and made him conscious of a superiority. As the depository of so many secrets, he could have played the role of fate, setting off an earthquake in the village and a fire in the hearts of its inhabitants, overflowing as they were with bitterness and hate and revenge. Quite unsuspectingly, they clapped him on the back and said gratefully, "It is good to have you among us. You at least are happy. You don't know what life's about, and that's fortunate." Every one of them, in his own way, expressed satisfaction over the fact that the son of the prodigal Ilena should have come home. One offered him a glass of wine, another invited him to go walking and pick wild strawberries on the way. Perhaps it was because heretofore they had no village idiot among them. He became their deaf-mute, just as the fat priest was their priest and the eccentric owner of the villa was their mayor. To them Gregor represented the fringe of consciousness, where words and images floated freely, unconnected to the shore. He was the incomprehensible element of existence, an island, near and yet far away, threatened with being washed away by the sea. When they confided in him, they seemed to be delivering themselves to the powers of darkness with which part of him was somehow linked. They felt as if they were in the cemetery where they went to beg the dead to ward off evil. Half joking, half serious, they told him things that they would never have confessed to the priest, who would have spread them around without discrimination. With him they had less to fear than with the priest, for he would not reprimand them. With Gregor they were able to rid themselves of their guilt without incurring the penance that even the most lenient confessor would have imposed upon them. I'm going to stop right there. Look up the word scapegoat. Thanks. Come back tomorrow.